Everyone, this is Chase with InsurGrid. I'm joined today by Buenzow of Buenzow Insurance in Iowa. Ben, thanks for joining Agency Starter Story. Just to get started, tell us maybe a little bit more about your agency today, and then we'll eventually get to the starter story.
Yeah, I'm located out here in Iowa right now in the Midwest, the heart of the Midwest. So I've got an agency. I've been here in this location for 14 years now. But I literally just switched over to the independent channel 4 months ago, and we're hitting the ground running, and it's been a great move for us, and probably should have done it probably 10 years ago, actually, but hindsight's always 20/20. Quite honestly, it's pretty random. I used to work in social service field as a in-home family therapist, and I made little to no money. I was volunteering my time, and after a while, I'm like, couple years of doing this, I'm like, I got to do something else if I want to make any money at all, and support a family and raise a family and everything else. So put my resume out online, and had a couple recruiters from insurance companies reach out, which obviously they're all recruiting all the time. And then I had a large captive carrier get a hold of me, and I went through their selection process in 2004, and 17 years ago, and I was approved. And so about a few months later, an agent that was looking to hire at the time, so I actually went to work for that agent for 3 years, and then an agency came open here in this community where I'm at now, after a guy retired after 41 years. Then I interviewed for his actual agency, and I was given his book of business then to take over. So it's pretty much how I got to where I'm at today. And when I made the switch over 4 months ago, we kept the same office location, same phone number as well too then. I learned a ton from the agent I worked for directly over those 3 years. And quite honestly, we joke aside, but I'm like, I got paid to go to grad school for 3 years. It's kind of how I look at it. So it's worked out pretty well. It just random things here and there. And when you're captive, your requirements and production stuff are different than an independent channel. So some of the stuff that I learned and dealt with before doesn't apply so much on some of the business modeling stuff a little bit, but just the broad scope of the coverages and the carriers and competitiveness and how to sell. I think the psychology of selling is a big thing for me. So learned a lot from him over those 3 years that I worked for him, and quite honestly, really catapulted me into the agency we're at now. So I had a good friend of mine who was an independent agency and sold his agency about 3 years ago, and he had 151 employees when he sold his agency, actually. So he was a very large independent agent, and I see what he does now, and the freedom and lifestyle he lives today and everything as far as that goes, and just the flexibility is a big thing. So him and I were having conversations a little bit, and he's like, hey, you should go independent maybe. And I'm like, yeah, maybe, whatever. Eventually maybe turned into some deeper conversations and went down the path. And for me, the big thing is being able to offer more products to everybody and not turn people away. So I don't ever have to tell anybody no. Like so far in 4 months, I've never once said no to anybody. We find a market for it. We have a direct writer carrier, or we go to our excess and surplus lines market if we need to. So that's the fun part. We're doing a lot of different stuff that we never could do before, let alone, a lot of the similar stuff and clientele that we worked with before as well too. So a gentleman, big broker in town, is building a house next door to me. So I actually met up with him, and I was able to kind of get started underneath his umbrella. So my contracts and appointments and stuff are all directly under his agency itself. So that's how I was able to go and not have to go through the aggregator groups and marketing MGAs and other opportunities and situations that are out there. And I did look at a couple other opportunities prior to learning about the broker I'm under right now, and one of those being a franchise opportunity as well. So I've looked at multiple different things prior to making this decision to get it set up the way I did. So.
And what ultimately led you to choose the path that you did versus an association or anything in particular?
Honestly, I have like a 6-page contract versus 85 pages with one of them and 22 on another. And I don't have all these stipulations and when I say very detailed legal requirements and everything else. It's pretty vague. And I have opportunity if I want to sell it, and he has the opportunity to buy it first. And if we don't agree to terms, then I can go to market and sell it. So, 100% of it. I don't have to give up any of that at all, which is nice. And some of those other opportunities, you're giving up a chunk of that if you do try to sell, things like that too. I didn't have to pay any franchise fees or any of that kind of stuff really, other than my own expenses, which is expected. And it's pretty much it. So it's pretty simplified. And I think if you can partner with somebody local like that to get started, it's probably a pretty decent opportunity, as long as it's somebody you know, like, and trust, and you think you can work with and learn from as well too. That's another key thing too. You have to have somebody willing to train you on the different carrier opportunities and programs and products and things like that too. So when I made the switch over, I 100% went stretch, obviously, so I couldn't take my book with me as a captive where I was at. So my office manager stayed on board. She's fully licensed producer as well, so she's helping out a ton. And I actually just brought on another producer just recently, a couple weeks ago. So he's just getting going on personal lines and commercial lines P&C sales. So it's 3 of us running right now, and I do have a part-time guy that comes in once a week. Does a bunch of cold calling for us and appointment setting, things like that as well too. So that's what my team is set up with right now. The big thing and you hear this all the time, hire for your weaknesses, right? So if you're great at sales and not so much service, hire someone that's going to take care of your people and keep the back door closed and keep your retention levels high and things. Because it makes a world of a difference. 5% differential in lapse can rates equals quite a bit of money out the back door or in the door, depending on how you work that number otherwise. So there's value in having somebody help out with that, especially if you're not the one that's going to take every call and return every phone call and question and payment issue and claim issue and everything else. Hire for your weaknesses overall, I think. And as you go to build out your team, bring on the right people that are producers. And I think one thing I learned over the years from the agent I did work for is don't ever be captive to your employees, okay? It's like, do not feel like they own you. And oftentimes I see insurance agents do that. They hire somebody and they're like, oh, it's so hard to find somebody. And they're on board for 2-3 months and then they're not doing anything at all. And they have issues, and like, why are you keeping them around? Like, move on. If that's the case, just move on and find somebody, because there's plenty of people out there that are looking to work and that will work and do a great job for you and such. So one other piece of advice that I learned from my prior agent I did work under is the old saying goes, the checker gets what the checker checks. So you bring people on board. I'm not a micromanager, but there's something different that you do have to kind of monitor and oversee what's taking place, just to know your people are actually following through with the things that they're supposed to be following through with, other than putting apps on the board and that kind of thing as well too. So not so much software. I mean, before everything had to go through corporate, so we really didn't have any options as far as the software and programs like that and stuff. I would say, on the independent side, it's a little different. We're using Easy Links for our CRM and the Rater tool and everything there, which has been fine. It's just different from what I was used to. So we're adapting to all the changes and such with it as well. And we also added the InsurGrid as well, obviously, as of recent, a few weeks back. And it's been kind of a game changer for us to be able to obtain information quicker and honestly more information, just more details, and puts us in a better position to win, really, because we know exactly what we're up against at this point. So previously, I was the point that 75% of my business was all referrals, okay? I've been in this community for a long time. I sponsor a lot of community events. I've gotten known to be involved in the community as well, too. My entire agency has. And I do a lot with our local law enforcement here and a couple programs we run there. And so that's really helped. But probably one of the big things I did when I opened this agency 14 years ago, even as a captive, was I joined my local chamber of commerce. And our chamber's second largest chamber in Iowa here, in Urbandale here exactly. It's a great chamber. It's been great. I've gotten to know a ton of people through it. But really, it's all the relationships I built there. So they're a lot of the people that are sending me referrals, and let alone a lot of them are clients of mine now as well too. So that's been a great thing. I really wasn't doing a whole lot of marketing like early on. You buy internet leads and that kind of stuff as well too, but I cut that out years ago. So I was not really doing the turn and burn kind of hamster wheel approach that I always refer to it as. But we're writing more quality business. And so now on the independent side, I really am not doing a lot of marketing. Social media is a big thing for me and always has been. So I get a lot of referrals actually through Facebook, my Facebook page, LinkedIn, and we've added in Instagram as well, obviously. So that's been a huge thing for us. Not even sponsored ads. I mean, we'll throw some sponsored stuff out there once in a while, but it's just organically people getting to know who we are as people and such. And wanting to do business with people they know, like, and trust. And Facebook allows you to somewhat do that. A lot of these people I've never even met before, and I'll run into them at a store, and they're like, "Hey, you're Ben, that insurance guy. You're the old, my old captive company they'd call otherwise." And I'll avoid that right now. But anyway, so it's really been a big thing for us. Obviously, we cold call, we'll stop by businesses and such in the area, and that sort of thing. But it's really referrals. I mean, that's the brunt of our business.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's just really getting involved in the community, and one great way to do that is just joining your local chamber of commerce.
Absolutely. Yeah, I served on the board for 7 years. I've been a member for 14 years. Spent 7 years on the board. I was the prior chair and everything a couple of years ago as well too. And you get a lot of exposure just being involved. Being a member is one thing, but being active and involved and on the board, you kind of get a little more exposure that way as well too. So it's been a great thing for me. Yeah, really, especially on the independent side, I'd pick a niche market and go after it. Become an expert in a niche market area. If it's contractors specifically you want to work with, then go work with contractors and do it. Instead of being a jack of all trades kind of deal. And as you master that niche market and you cover your county or city or state or however you want to expand out or not, then I'd say, find another niche to add into the mix, Probably the biggest thing, I dealt with being the jack of all trades from my prior situation, and I can see the challenges. I mean, there's benefits to that, but there's a lot of challenges as well. But more so, I see the opportunity as being an expert in my field and developing niche markets especially on the independent channel side of this thing. So it's probably the biggest thing I'd suggest people consider.
Awesome. Great, Ben. Well, thanks for jumping on the show and for taking time out of your day to tell us more about your agency.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Appreciate the time.